Hi, this is Drew Tignanelli. This is our March update. We're here with Michael P. McCarthy.
Hello.
And we are talking about the market. Let's start with that. Yeah, market, when we're taping this, you've had a couple bad days in the market. Who knows? The market might go down 10, 15%.
Yeah, really segregated too, though. It's mostly hitting the tech industry, which the tech industry has had phenomenal growth over the past year. So it's more or less just a little bit of a pullback for them.
It's very typical what happens in markets, and the funny thing to me about markets is how many people want to say that this is a bubble and that's a bubble and this is a bubble. And the reason they do that is because you had that big one in 2008 and that was a real bubble. Now everybody's trying to find the latest bubble. And
well, you got to get people's attention, Drew.
Well, I understand, but I'm sick of hearing it that it's a bubble. Bubbles are always created out of excessive leverage, and there isn't excessive leverage at this point in time. Companies can't just borrow money willy-nilly, easily. Yes, there is leverage in government debt, and that
Right.
though is a little different as to how government debt affects economics as opposed to personal debt or corporate
It
debt.
is because they can print money.
Yes, that is true. Because when you borrow money that you can create out of thin air, it is a very different thing, and they can also tax too. So that's the big difference. But we're concerned always and watching constantly.
But we're also optimistic.
Charles Schwab said it best, a great investor always needs to be an optimist. And you look at some of the greatest investors of all time, Warren Buffett especially, he's the preeminent optimist. That's all he ever talks about. He talks,
And there is good market news today. I mean, I believe this morning on my ride in, I was listening to some of the spending reports, and consumer spending is way up. And it's a continuing trend, and they're hoping that as the temperatures warm, this consumer spending trend really takes off. And
the vaccine, people are feeling more comfortable, and the cases are down. Deaths have been declining. Deaths haven't come down as much as cases have, but the vaccine seems to be having an impact. And the media is trying to scare people with these new variants. But these vaccines are still relatively effective against all the variants also. At
least as far as we know right now.
According to the studies that we've seen, they were hoping for just 50% efficacy on the vaccine against the original coronavirus. These variants, they're still being 35 to 55% effective, even against the South African one that's supposedly the most difficult. But not only is it just good in preventing you from getting it, but it also is proving to say that even if you did get it, if you have the vaccine, it's going to dramatically reduce the problems that you're going to have with it. So people are feeling more comfortable.
People are feeling more comfortable
overall.
Opening their wallets, going back to things that they wanted, trying to get some normalcy. But you know what? So the market is what the market is, but we've got a lot of planning topics to cover.
We do have a lot of planning topics to cover. And the first one is that there's good news in the sense that My Social Security is now much easier to set up. What's My Social Security? It's a online account for your Social Security, whatever you want to call
records
it.
And
your Social Security records
file.
And payments and all that kind of stuff. Before, you had to answer all these crazy credit union questions, credit bureau questions, and if you didn't get them right, like, who'd you buy your house from in 1996? I had once, or what phone number you associated with, and you're thinking, well, that phone number there might have been my, or something.
Yeah.
And, but
well, why do I want a My Social Security login, Drew?
Well, you always want to have an online account because if you don't have it, some criminal could go in and try to set one up for you. I mean, we just had a case recently where somebody had my name, my Social Security number, my address, who I worked for, and they tried to file unemployment against me.
They didn't try.
They did.
They successfully filed for unemployment. And I told Drew that I was absolutely not going to let him collect unemployment and a salary at the same time. He's going to have to let one or the other go, right?
Right, that's correct. But, this is why I always have a credit freeze on my account. If you don't know what a credit freeze is, contact your financial advisor and get help in getting your credit bureau accounts frozen. Because if somebody has that information, there's lots of negative things they can do unless you have a credit freeze out there.
So getting the My Social Security login is important, so it's you've got it and somebody else hasn't signed up for it. It's also important because you're going to want to look at your records, look at making sure that what your employer's HR department has reported as your income is correct and you're getting the proper credit and Social Security, and also that no one else has filed for you. It's making sure they have your email address so they can send you notifications.
What your benefit will be in the future. And if you're already retired, you can change your bank deposit with that My Social Security account.
Sure.
And if you want to sign up for Social Security, you have to get a My Social Security account. You might as well get it now and not wait until you have to get it. Nowadays, you just have to take a picture of your driver's license or pull out your tax return from last year and fill in some information, and voila, you're verified. And
so let's talk about another thing our clients should go online and do, which is go to the IRS.gov website and sign up for a PIN for the tax return.
Yeah, that's a new one too. In 2013, there was $24 billion of refunds that the IRS rejected as fraudulent, but there was also $5 billion of refunds in 2013 that they paid. $5 billion in refunds that they paid that were fraudulent. And when that happens, when you submit your tax return, they may say, "Oh, wait a minute, you've already filed. You can't file twice." Well, that wasn't me that filed, and now the IRS wants you, the real you, to go through proof that it is you filing this return. It could delay your refund or whatever for weeks or months. The IP, though, you can go, and how do you do that? You get a PIN number.
You go to this web address right down here.
Yeah, that's
this
a
one
virtual.
right
You're a weatherman or something.
I've got people.
I didn't see a website there, but I'll bet you when that video comes out, it's there. You go to that website, and then you get your PIN number, and when you file your return, and if you do this, you have to tell us that PIN number, because if we file your return for 2020 and you got a PIN number and I don't put it on there, they're going to reject your tax return. So
make sure your tax preparer has that PIN number.
So
and you'll need a new one each year.
You'll need to get a new one each year. So either don't get the PIN number until after you file this year's tax return and then use it from that forward, or get your PIN number and tell us. And that would be our preferred method. Get your PIN number and tell us.
So speaking of filing a tax return, there are 2 reasons this year to consider whether or not you should file that tax return earlier or not.
Yep, that's true. You've got lots of unique things. Go ahead, you tell.
So the first one is, while I think our client base has been mostly lucky during this time, we haven't heard too many stories. If you collected any unemployment in 2020, there's some pending legislation that may make that unemployment not taxable. So if you collected unemployment during the year, you're going to want to let us know so that we maybe wait a little while to file your tax return. That's probably the best reason to wait to file your tax return. There's another reason that I wish we were shooting this video in a few more days, but then it would be late coming out. The Senate is voting on the next stimulus bill right now. We'll have firm numbers knowing about what your 2019 or 2020 income will need to be in order to get the next stimulus payment. So if your 2019 income is lower than your 2020 income and you fall into that threshold area, you may be better off waiting to file. But that's going to be a very individual, very specific, very limited reason for a handful of clients. But so that's all we have on taxes for this time. But I think you had a passionate topic you wanted to talk about.
So I was just talking to a client, and they're going to move, and when they do, they're going to need a bunch of money before their house sells. And the question I always ask is, did you get the home equity credit line on your house? Like I always tell my clients to do. Get a home equity credit line. It doesn't cost you anything to get it, doesn't cost you anything to keep it, and you can have a big sum of money anytime you want it just by writing a check. But if you wait until the day you need it to go and ask for that home equity credit line, you're not going to get it. You got to do it now when you don't need it. This client didn't do that. Now we're going to have to figure out some other imaginations to get the money. Whereas if we had the credit line, it would be easily available and everything would be just boom, simple.
Now, I can't let you beat up on him like that.
Get a home equity credit line.
He technically had the home equity credit line. He
And
let it lapse. But yeah, that home equity credit line is really important. The only reason not to get it is if you are very confident you'll be moving in the next 2 years. Most banks, you're going to need to keep it open for 2 years, or they could charge you back those closing costs, which could be in the neighborhood of $1,500. So as long as you're reasonably confident you're going to be in your home for
And
at least 2 years.
the only other reason we wouldn't want you to get it is that if you would be irresponsible with it and just use it for something just because you want to spend money and you're going to use your house as a piggy bank, that wouldn't be a good way to use it. This is a
Right.
tool in the tool belt, hidden away, waiting for those unique situations like this one where you needed a lot of money for a very specific planning situation, and it would have given it to them very simply. So
Yep.
anyway, I'm not allowed to say anything about the Nix A on the stimulus A. All right.
Next day on the Alitex pay. I try at least.
This is Drew Tignanelli saying God bless.